Poor Mac. Mac groans. He stumbles to his feet and hobbles toward his office. Ruby watches him leave. I can't read her expression. Is she afraid, relieved, proud? When Mac is gone, George and Julia lead Ruby from the ring. It's okay, baby, it's okay, Julia says, stroking Ruby's head. They settle Ruby in her domain and make sure she has fresh water and food. Before long, Ruby's dozing. Dad, Julia asks as George locks Ruby's iron door. Do you think Mac would ever really hurt Ruby? I don't think so, Jules, George says. At least I hope not. Maybe we could call somebody. George scratches his chin. I wish I could help Ruby, but I won't know how. I mean, who would I call? The elephant cops? Besides, George looks down. I need this job, Jules. We need this job. Your mom, the doctor bills. He kisses the top of Julia's head. Back to work, you and me both. Sorry. Julia sighs and reaches for her backpack. She removes a piece of paper, a bottle of water, and a small metal box. Homework first, then you can paint, George says, wagging a finger. It's for art class. We're doing watercolors. I'm going to paint Ruby. George smiles. All right, then. Just don't forget your spelling. Dad, Julie asks again, did you see Mac's face when Ruby hit him? George nods. Yes, he says solemnly. I did. He shakes his head. Poor Mac. He turns away. Only then do I hear him laughing. Colors. Julia opens the metal box. I see a row of little squares. Green, blue, red, black, yellow, purple, and orange. The colors seem to glow. She pulls out a brush with a thin tuft of its tails at its end. She dips the brush in water and wets the paper, then taps the red square. When the brush meets the damp paper, pink petals of color unfurl like morning flowers. I can't take my eyes off the magical brush. For a moment, I'm not thinking about Ruby and Mac and the claw stick and Stella. Almost. Julia touches the red again, then the blue, and then there's suddenly it's purple of a ripe grape. She touches the blue, and her paper turns to summer sky, black and white, and now I see that she's painting a picture of Ruby. I can make out her floppy ears and her thick legs. Julia stops painting. She takes a few step backs, hands on her hips, gazing at her work. She scowls. It's not right, she says. She glances over her shoulder at me. I try to look encouraging. Julia starts to crumple up the paper, then reconsiders. Instead, she slides it into my cage at the spot where the glass is broken. Here you go, a Julia original. That'll be worth millions someday. Gingerly, I pick up the paper. I do not eat a single bite of it. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. Julia runs to her backpack. She pulls out 3 plastic jars, one yellow, one blue, and one red. She opens the jars, and an odd, not food smell hits my nose. Julia pushes the jars one by one through the opening, then slides some paper through. These are called finger paints, she says. My aunt gave them to me, but really, I'm too old for finger painting. I stick a finger in the red jar. The paint is thick as mud. It's cool and smooth, like bananas underfoot. I pop my finger into my mouth. It's not exactly ripe mango, but it's not bad. Julia laughs. You don't eat it, you paint with it. She grabs a piece of paper, presses her finger on it. See, like this. I place my finger on a piece of paper. I lift it, and a red mark is there. I get a bigger glob from the pot and slap my hand down on the page. When I pull my hand off the paper, it's red twin stains behind. This isn't like the ghostly handprints on my glass, the ones my visitors leave behind. This handprint can't be wiped away so easily. A bad dream. I lie awake, peeling dried red paint off my fingers. Bob, who accidentally walked on one of my paintings, is licking his red paw. Every so often I glance over at the empty ring. The claw stick glints in the moonlight. Stop! No! Ruby frantic cries. Startle me. Ruby, I call. You're having a bad dream. You're okay. You're safe. Where's Stella? She asks, gulping for air. Before I can answer, she says, never mind. I remember now. Go back to sleep, Ruby, I say. You've had a hard day. I can't go back to sleep, she says. I'm afraid I'll have the dream. There was a sharp stick and it hurt. I looked at Bob. He looked at me. Oh, Ruby. Oh, Mac, she puts her trunk between the bars. Do you think that Mac is mad because I hurt him today? I consider lying, but gorillas are terrible liars. Probably, I finally say. He ran away after that, Ruby says. Bob gives a scornful laugh. Crawled away is more like it. We are quiet for a while. Branches claw at the roof. A light rain drums. One of the parrot murmurs something in her sleep. Ruby breaks the silence. Ivan, I smell something funny. He can't help it, Bob says. I believe she's referring to the finger paints Julia gave me. I say, what are finger paints, Ruby asks. You make a picture with them, I explain. Could you make a picture of me? Maybe someday. I remember Julia's picture, the one that will be worth millions of dollars. I hold it up to the glass. Look, it's you. Julia made it. It's hard to see. There's not much moonlight. And why do I have two trunks? I examine the picture. Those are feet. Why do I have 2 feet? It's called artistic license, Bob says. Ruby sighs. Could you tell me another story? She asks. I don't think I can ever go back to sleep. I told you all I remember, I say with a helpless shrug. Then tell me a new story, she says. Make something up. I try to think, but my thoughts keep returning to Mac and his claw stick. Anything yet? Ruby asks. I'm working on it. Ivan, Ruby presses. Bob said you're going to save me. I search for the true words. I'm working on that too. Ivan, Ruby says in a voice so low I can barely hear her. I have another question. I can tell from the sound of her voice that this will be a question I don't want to answer. Ruby taps her trunk against the rusty iron bars of her door. Do you think, she asks, that I'll die in this domain someday like Aunt Stella? Once again I consider lying, but when I look at Ruby, the half-formed words die in my throat. Not if I can help it, I say instead. I feel something tighten in my chest, something dark. And it's not a domain, I add, and then I pause and say, it's a cage. The story. I look at the ring layered with fresh sawdust. I look at the skylight and the half-hidden moon. I just thought of a story, I say. Is it a made-up story or a true one? True, I say, I hope. Ruby leans against her bars. Her eyes hold the pale moon in them, the way a still pond holds stars. Once upon a time, I say, there was a baby elephant. She was smart and brave, and she needed to go to a place called a zoo. What's a zoo, Ruby asks. A zoo, Ruby, is a place where humans make amends. A good zoo is a place where humans care for animals and keep them safe. Did the baby elephant get to the zoo? Ruby asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Yes, I say at last. How did she get there? Ruby asks. She had a friend, I say. A friend who made a promise. How? It takes a long time, but finally Ruby returns to sleep. Ivan, Bob whispers, yawning. What you said about the zoo, how are you going to do it? Suddenly I feel as I could sleep for 1,000 days. I don't know, I admit. You'll think of something, Bob says confidently, his voice trailing off as his eyes close. What if I don't, I ask, but Bob is already asleep. His little red feet dance, and I know he's running in his dreams. Remembering, Bob and Ruby sleep on. I don't sleep. I think about the promise I made to Stella and the pictures I made for Ruby, and I remember. I remember it all. What they did. We were clinging to our mother, my sister and I, when the humans killed her. They shot my father next. Then they chopped off their hands, their feet, and their heads. Something else to buy. There's a cluttered, musty store near my cage. They sell an ashtray there. It's made from the hand of a gorilla. Another Ivan. When morning comes and the parking lot glimmers with dew, I see a billboard on the highway. There I am, the one and only Ivan, bathed in a pink light of dawn. I look so angry with my furrowed brow and clenched fist. I look the way my father did the day the men came. I am, I suppose, a peaceful sort. Mostly I watch the world go by and think about naps and bananas and yogurt raisins. But inside me, hidden, is another Ivan. He could tear a grown man's limb off his body. In the flicker of time it takes a snake's tongue to taste the air, he could taste revenge. He is the Ivan on the billboard. I stare at the one and only Ivan, at the faded picture of Stella, and I remember George and Mac on their ladders adding the picture of Ruby to bring new visitors to the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. I remember the story Ruby told, the one where the villagers came to her rescue. I hear Stella's kind, wise voice. Humans can surprise you. I look at my fingers, coated in red paint, the color of blood, and I know how to keep my promise. Days. During the days I wait, during the nights I paint. I worry when Mac takes Ruby into the ring. He carries the claw stick with him all the time now. He doesn't use it. He doesn't have to. Ruby isn't fighting back anymore. She does whatever Mac asks. Nights. I close my eyes. I dip my finger into the paint. When I'm done with one piece of paper, I set it aside to dry. It's so small, just one sheet, and I'm going to need so many. I move on to the next and the next to the next. It's a giant puzzle, and I'm making the pieces one by one. By morning, my floor is covered with paintings. I hide the paintings under my pool of dirty water before Mac can see them. I don't want them to end up in the gift store selling for $25 a piece. $20 a piece, $25 with a frame. These paintings are for Ruby, every one of them. projects. Ivan, Ruby asked one morning when I am trying to nap, "Why are you always so sleepy during the day?" "I've been working on a project at night." "What's a project?" "It's a thing, a painting. It's a painting for you, actually," I answer. "Can I see it?" "Not yet." Ruby pokes with annoyance at her roped foot. She takes a breath. "Ivan, do I have to do a show with Mac today?" "I'm afraid so. I'm sorry, Ruby." Ruby dips her trunk in the water bucket. "That's okay. I already knew the answer." Not right. It's night again and everyone is asleep. I look at the picture I just made. 1 dozen. It's smudged and torn, a muddy blur. I place it beside the others lining my floor. The colors are wrong, the shapes are off. It looks like nothing. It's not what I'm trying to create. It's not what it's meant to be. It's not right. I don't know why. Across the parking lot, the billboard beckons as it always does. Come to the exit 8, Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan, mighty Silverback. If I could use human words to say what I need to say, this would all be so easy. Instead, I have my pots of paint and my ragged pages. I sigh. My fingertips glow like jungle flowers. I try again.